Welcome back to part 2 of our 3 parts for this podcast, where we dive into the fashion accessory industry. In part 2, we're going to step into the customer journey, the steps and activities and touch points that customers go through as they work with a particular brand. And we'll talk a little bit about the voice of the customer survey that we envision as a starter survey for this particular micro industry. So the customer journey, as we've talked about before, the customer journey is the journey, so to speak, that a customer goes through when they're experiencing a brand. So they are starting off with the very first thoughts in their head of deciding that they might need whatever type of product or service it is that this brand is offering. And then from there, they consider their options. They will then go to the establishment, or if it's an online purchase, they'll go through the website. And then from there, they will experience the staff and the products and go through the actual decision process to buy something. And then they will go through the actual payment process. And afterwards, there's still potentially interaction with that brand from the follow-up standpoint and customer retention and loyalty side of things. So here we have a little picture of a road that shows the customer journey. And on this next slide here, we have the various parts of that customer journey. So moving from left to right across the top, you've got these 5 stages. And every industry we look at gets broken down into 5 stages. You have the awareness of the brand, then you have the consideration of the brand and the actual purchase. Then they have the conversion, which is where they actually decide to make the purchase and go through those various steps. And then the retention afterwards, followed by advocacy. And inside of each of those stages, you have the steps. So underneath awareness there, you see there's 1 step. And then you have inside of consideration 2 steps, and so on. And underneath that, you have the various touch points in that step that the customer interacts with. So there's actually quite a bit going on here in the fashion accessories space. There's a lot of potential touch points. You would think they're just talking with the staff, but there's actually multiple staff members. There's the display cases. There's the product itself. There's all sorts of little pieces here that they're interacting with in their journey throughout the brand. And so now we have the next slide, which will be the big moment of truth. This is always a fun part to look at. So what we do is we take the online reviews and ratings that we've polled and we've analyzed using the aspect-based sentiment analysis, and we map those experiences against the customer journey. And so we're going to see each of the stages in the process, each of the steps in the process. And we're going to see where customers are feeling satisfied and where they're feeling not so satisfied. So before we move on to the next slide, we always kind of ask, what is everyone's guess as to what areas do we think our customers going to express high satisfaction, and where do we think that the brands could use improvement? Let's go ahead and start with Ronelle. What's you swim in this space. What do you think is going to be a strong point for brands, or what do you think is going to be a low point?
I think in terms of a strong point, it would probably be the outlet itself. Location should definitely be a strong point. And if I look at our results from Africa, definitely the display areas and ease of use. Ease of navigation within the retail space. Mm-hmm. That would be my guess.
Okay. Well, Emil, I know you've seen the results here. You're going to talk about them in more detail, so I'm going to skip you for now. But we'll ask Chris here. What do you think is a particular area where things are going to be
well,
good?
I think that this type of product, even if the experience is not the best, the conversion always creates some kind of excitement because, it's shopping. And in terms of negative, I would say that based on the online reviews, I would say in terms of retention and loyalty would be the lowest results.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's related to after sales.
Yeah, my guess, and just because we've seen it consistently, is that there's going to be issues in the payment process for some reason that every industry we've looked at so far seems to have a frustration point there. Pardon me?
Well, we did see that in the marketing mix, so that shouldn't be a surprise. What we saw, and that was a major exception, price and process were the two pieces of the marketing mix which were in the critical area in the average of 50%. And this is something we've never seen to that extent.
Yeah, that's true. And if I had to guess as well, I would say what Ronelle said, what you said, Ronelle, is actually going to probably ring true, which is the conversion. There's going to be points in there that are done pretty well. Most businesses seem to at least get some of the selling aspects very well done. But let's see what we get. Let's see what we have.
Yeah.
All right. So here we're looking at the customer journey, and we can see the customer satisfaction mapped here across the various stages. And down at the bottom are the individual steps. You can see the line, which is the average of the online customer reviews and ratings. And so we've got, looks like a fair amount that's in the green there. You've definitely got some aspects in the yellow. And then looks like, payments in the red, like we were just talking about. The circles themselves, the size of the circles, shows us the frequency of mention. In other words, how often that particular step was discussed in the online reviews and ratings. So you can see here in the consideration that that initial greeting is actually something where it's yellow and it's talked about quite a bit. And so there's a definite potential there for improvement. The large gray blob on the background of the line is actually the variance, the standard deviation across the mean of the average there. And so what you can see here is essentially a snapshot of operational consistency, or at least customer perception of such. If the blob is very wide, if it's very thick, such as what you see there in the end with the retention and the loyalty side of things, even though the average is pretty high at the end, you've got a large variance in the reviews and ratings as far as customer perception. So there's a potential there to increase the consistency of that particular stage. And similarly, if it's very narrow, then there's an area where things are consistently performing around the average.
Yeah, here there is one note, Erik, that I would like to make. I have done several studies for some shopping malls here in Portugal and in Spain. And when we look at this industry, first of all, we need to consider that shoppers go to the store for something that they want to buy, not something that they need to buy. And that's why the conversion is apparently with higher results in terms of satisfactions, because they really want to buy something. They make an effort, even if the sales representative performance is not the best. And when it goes to the payment process, this is something that has an impact as well, because it's something that they want to buy, not that they need to buy. So they tolerance for waiting time, for example, it's much less than for the supermarket, for example. And from the studies that I have done for these shopping malls chains in Portugal and Spain, it shows that this type of business is the one that have more customers leaving items behind, dropping out actually in the payment zone and leaving the stores without buying it when there is poor queue management than any other sector in the shopping mall, because it's, again, things that they wanted to buy, but they didn't need it to. So if there is any process that is not seamless, especially in the payment process, they just give up and leave.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's talk about our thoughts of what we see here. It looks like payment and pricing is definitely an area that's got some complaints. Be good to see some more detail in there. And Emil, I think you mentioned last time that we would actually see some more detail in here, so we'll get to that. Ronelle, what do you see here that either looks like no surprise to you at all, or perhaps something interesting?
Yeah, so for me, the interesting thing definitely is that initial greeting for fashion accessories. We know from the studies that we've done that that is absolutely critical. If that initial greeting is not done, then if any small little thing happens throughout the process, it's easy. Like Chris says, if there's going to be a queue, I'm gonna leave. I don't want to stand here. People are not friendly. That initial greeting did not happen. I'm not going to be very tolerant for anything else to go wrong along this journey. So I found that rather interesting. And with the payment and pricing, I do find that interesting, because with the stores that we do here, there's not often that there are queues actually for the accessories. It's very much a niche, the stores that we deal with. So I found that interesting as well.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, because again, if I don't care about the initial greeting and such, that's just another incentive for me to go online. Like part of the
100%.
big reason to go to a store is to be greeted and to be treated and to be helped out. So that initial greeting is no surprise that that's critical.
And with the post-purchase engagement, I think that's definitely it's such an easy thing actually for people. So one of our clients is a jewelry store, and they do bespoke jewelry. And they've got a simple CRM system to just send you a message on your birthday, but you're on their database and you're able to actually communicate with them via WhatsApp. So, I mean, using technology, we can definitely bridge that gap with the post-purchase.
It's interesting that the conversion phase has got a few points that are definitely in the green and good, but there's still a large amount of variance there, which means that there's likely some operational inconsistency on those aspects.
Yes, but it's not unusual. What's interesting is that the red area, the red KPI here, the red step, the step in red, is quite significant from a volume standpoint, as indicated by the area of the circle itself. So do we want to dive into that now?
Yeah, let's see this.
Okay, so this is the first time that we do that, and what we have done this time is we did dive into the key factors in the low sentiment for payment and pricing. So what we can see here is the top 3 key factors make up for almost 50%. And these are the high price for low quality, unexpected extra costs, and a lack of durability or longevity of the items, which I think the first and the third are linked. They are 2 faces of the same phenomena, if you will. And, which means that we can summarize that a third of the key factors in the low sentiment for payment and pricing are related to high price for low quality. Then what we can see is that we have these unexpected extra costs, which may be linked to misleading discounts or sales. They're also, I think, very much different faces of the same phenomena. We have also discrepancies between online and in-store pricing, inadequate or poor customer service, and poor fit of product to expectations. And I did miss the unfavorable comparison to competitors, but I guess if I have to summarize it, what we can see clearly here is that what makes up the majority of the low sentiment is high price for low quality or misleading practices. I think that that becomes quite clear now from the breakdown of the sentiment.
Yeah, per my experience, the misleading discounts and discrepancies between online and offline are big issues in retail, particularly the misleading discounts. And I can say this as a consultant and as a customer as well. that this is a major issue in many countries, that it almost looks like the customer needs to be an expert to understand how the discounts are applied and what are the exceptions. It's truly something that I cannot understand how brands can operate that way.
Mm.
Do you have that problem in South Africa as well, Ronelle, where the discounts are?
100%. I think I did touch on it when we spoke earlier as well, Chris, that exclusivity, value for money, and the fact that I need to be able to trust you is critical. So if I cannot even understand how the pricing structure is working, already for me, there's a negative connotation to that. It will affect the trust relationship.
Yeah, like it's 30% off the entire store and then very, 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 very small, but you have to spend 200 euros, or it's everything 50% off except this, and this, and you cannot return, or if you return, you have just company card and not your money back, or etc., etc., etc. So it's so complicated sometimes that it's almost like the customer needs to have a PhD in promotions to understand. And one of the things that customers love the most is that things need to be simple.
Clarity.
Mhm.
We come back to that. It needs to be
Right.
clear. It needs to be quality. It needs to be, because what we also see that happen, what happens in this space is that you are buying an item that you're thinking is good quality and it doesn't last.
Yeah.
So the second time it rains, your jewelry goes black when I've paid a premium price, and now I don't feel like it's exclusive anymore, and I'm not getting the value.
Mhm.
So that definitely is a huge factor, and one of customers' biggest gripes in South Africa. Yes.
I think another thing that's really interesting, stepping back and looking at this from a high level again, is what we see here. I'm so happy that we're doing this now, and I think we should look into this particular type of a breakdown for anything that's really low scoring as we move forward with these podcast episodes. But is the fact that by doing the CX measurement here, which is what we're doing with these online reviews and ratings analysis that we've got, we can see aspects of the business that affect customer experience that are not driven exclusively by the people or by the way things are maintained on the property and the display shelves and things like that, because this type of clarity around pricing, that's ultimately a marketing and a business decision standpoint, so, or marketing and business decision function. And so you can use your online reviews and your customer experience measurements to help drive those decisions. So you could see very clearly here that one way a brand might be able to differentiate themselves is by having no nonsense pricing. That's what we call it in the US in a lot of cases. And I'll just throw one example out there. I'm a big car person, and there's a lot of car dealerships in the US, and it's very common when you go in, you see a car and there's an asking price and you negotiate and you work your way down. Well, what about this? What about that? And a lot of people find that very intimidating, very annoying. It takes a lot of time, and it creates a very, very, very negative perception of the business from a customer experience standpoint, because a lot of times you feel like, am I getting taken advantage of? Did I leave money on the table? And things like that. And there's a car company or a car dealership company called CarMax, who launched several years back in the States, and they're a nationwide dealership, and they sell used cars. But the thing that they effectively have been trying to do is to take the Amazon experience and make car buying just like that. So when you go in there, all of their cars have gone through a mechanical inspection. But most importantly, in this, with respect to what we're talking about here, they don't negotiate. The price is listed. There it is. You know what you're getting. And they offer on top of it a nice, warranty and things like that. That's automatically there. It's automatically free. And it's a completely different type of model around how the pricing and the negotiation takes place with respect to car purchases. From what I understand, their personnel are not even given commissions based on the sales. So they don't care if you buy the car or not. And so it's a completely different feel from a customer experience standpoint. And it looks like that might be something that companies could adopt here. I think part of the problem in 2024. We've got all these great ways from a calculation standpoint with spreadsheets and everything and AI to try to figure out, well, if we offer this discount on these products and this and that, we can offer a sale. But like you mentioned, Cristiani, we can carve out a certain things and we'll still make the same amount of money. And so there's all these creative ways to offer a sale, but not quite in the certain areas. So you get the business, but you don't lose the money. And ultimately, I think the customer suffers in those cases. They deal with the frustration of the types of nuances you're talking about. So I think that's a possible way that a brand could differentiate themselves is by saying, hey, look, we offer very clear pricing. This is a real sale. It's not 30% off, the store minus these parts. It's 20% off everywhere and it's everything. And so there's different ways I think that you could take the CX results that you see here and actually utilize those to improve your CX based on your pricing and other business observations.
I can give you an example that is not retail, but online retail. I bought some grocery shops when I came back from my trip last week, and I had a promotion from Uber Eats that it was to actually purchase like 30 euros and delivery was free from the supermarket. But there was a lot of items that were not available. And in the end, because just one item was available, I ended up paying 7 euros of delivery fee for one avocado. So I paid 5 euros for the avocado and 7 euros for the delivery fee because all the rest of the items that are ordered were not available on the store.
Yeah, I think if I can also chime in here. So in South Africa, we've got many bespoke small jewelry stores. And if you can remember previously when I spoke, I did mention that, loyalty, brand loyalty, and South Africans really, they want to support local. And you'll pay a premium price if you believe that it's a good quality product that's going to last you. I bought a pair of earrings. It was very bespoke. It was very expensive. It only lasted 8 months. And I went back to the facility about 6 months after that. The lady said to me, "Oh, how long have you had the earrings?" I said to her, "No, about 2 years." But considering half of the 2 years I couldn't wear it, she says to me, "Oh, it's wear and tear, but I will do you a favor and I will replace the earrings." I walked out there. I did not feel it wasn't a great experience for me. For me, it was a pain point. It was not a moment of excitement or elevation. It was a pain point, and I will not support that brand again. And as a South African, of course, I support local, but I will not support that brand again because I'm not prepared to pay a premium price for a product that's not going to last. It's not the price that's the problem, it's the quality.
All right, should we look at the key takeaways here?
Absolutely.
All right, so key takeaway number 1: improve payment and pricing process. I think we spoke a lot about this. It is clear, and the data shows that transparency and clarity is needed, and it actually is a major opportunity here to differentiate and stand out. Other areas of importance: high satisfaction in product quality and consultation. Deficits here, we already mentioned that. Focus areas for improvement in initial greeting, store ambience, and post-purchase engagement. And finally, there's an opportunity to strengthen the customer advocacy and loyalty. We see that the advocacy stage shows high positive sentiment, suggesting an opportunity to further leverage the loyal customers for referrals, word of mouth marketing, and etc. So that is the key takeaways from the analysis of the customer journey. And now that we're going to wrap up this second part of the podcast with the final section related to the voice of the customer surveys. So as in any business in fashion accessories retail, understanding the voice of the customer is essential. staying in tune with the ever-changing customer preferences. We know that it is a challenge to capture meaningful insights, especially in settings where shopping is often spontaneous or style-driven. We also know that a well-designed voice of the customer survey bridges this gap and uncovers customer expectations and motivations that usually would not be captured. But still, the question is how to build an optimal voice of the customer survey, especially when understanding that the amount of attention that customers can allow us for that type of exercise is not great. So the voice of the customer survey needs to be simple and efficient by focusing on what is important. And the approach that we are taking here is simply to build a starter voice of the customer survey by harnessing the insights from the customer reviews that customers give us in their reviews and ratings. And if we take that one step further, what we can pretty much infer from the customer reviews and ratings is that there are key drivers, and the key drivers in this specific industry are the greetings received from the fashion associates. We remember this big yellow area in the initial greeting, so this is what we are capturing here. Ambience of the fashion accessory store, quality and variety of products, price of products and services, and ultimately the checkout and the payment process. So these are the key driver questions which we see take the most in terms of the attention as measured by what the customers talk about most frequently. And then we obviously have the key driver detail questions, but most importantly, the voice of the customer survey, or the starter voice of the customer survey for fashion accessory stores that we recommend here, is starting with the primary question: how satisfied are you with the brand? Going through the 5 key driver questions that I already mentioned, and finishing up with a Net Promoter Score question on a scale of 0 to 10. How likely are you to recommend our brand to a friend or colleague? If the customer answers to any of the key driver questions with a rating of 1 through 4, so not the full 5 rating, then we are going to ask the follow-up questions. And in the case of price of products and services, which we discussed in great length earlier, the key driver details would be affordability of options, value for money, fairness of pricing, price competitiveness, and clarity of pricing. So as you can see, these are all tied up to the sentiments and to the problems more so related to clarity of pricing and the pricing and the payment process. So that is in a nutshell how we can build a starter voice of the customer survey based on the insights that we capture from the online reviews and ratings. To sum it up, what we have covered so far is online reviews and ratings, which is a key source of subjective data and subjective insights. Here we offer a mechanism to build a voice of the customer survey to dive deeper into those areas that are discussed and mentioned by customers when they give their reviews. And this covers the subjective metrics. Now, it will be important to actually dive into the objective measurements, and we're going to focus on that in the third part of this podcast. Erik?
That wraps up part 2 of our 3 parts for this particular podcast, where we dive into the fashion accessories microindustry. Join us for part 3, where we will talk with Ronelle and get her expert opinion about what she's seen in this particular micro industry. And we'll discuss in more detail the results that we've seen here and talk about our observations.